Please welcome Inc. Editor-in-Chief Scott O. in conversation with founder and CEO of Extreme Solutions and Shoulder Up, Phyllis Newhouse, and Irving Global Opportunity founder and managing member and basketball legend, Julius Dr. J. Irving.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for returning from lunch for us. We appreciate it. I'm the editor-in-chief of Inc., as you know by now, Scott O. And that actually makes me want to talk about, before we get started, names. I want to, there's a confession and then there's a revelation, I think. First is, I want to talk about the nickname Big Daddy, which is my nickname for Phyllis. And it's not because, don't think about it as sexist, right? It's like Big Mama, Martin Lawrence already had Big Mama. Right. So you got to be Big Daddy. And the reason I say that is Phyllis to me is a remarkable entrepreneur, a former Inc. 5000 two-time winner, three-time CEO, a remarkable person. So I think your nickname is Big Daddy.
All right, I'm gonna accept that one. How about that?
Well, you have to have one because the man on your right has one, right? In Dr. J. But that was not, Dr. J just didn't happen, right? You had to.
Yeah, actually, it didn't happen, Scott. But it did happen.
But there were
so
other
maybe like middle school,
yeah.
and through basketball. Go figure, right? I'm playing basketball and I'm playing with a guy who is one of my best friends. He lives in Atlanta. We play golf all the time, and we've known each other since middle school. And he was a very argumentative sort of guy. And in basketball, if the ball would hit him in the leg and go out, he's like, "Well, I got fouled, so it's my ball," or "I got pushed, so it's my ball."
You're still friends with this guy?
Yeah, I'm still friends with this guy. And I said, "You're just like a professor. You're always lecturing to people all the time." He said, "Well, if I'm the professor, then you got to be the doctor because you got more moves than Carters have liver pills and whatever." So we started calling each other doctor and professor. Graduate high school, go to the same college, University of Massachusetts, and he has a career as a entertainment publicist and had a long career. Now is somewhat retired. And we get out and play golf, and it's still, I'm the doctor to him, and he's the professor to me. The whole J piece came in my first year as a pro. I was with the Virginia Squires of the old ABA, and there were 3 people on their staff who they called Doc. And 2 were team physicians, and 1 just had the nickname. So the trainer said, "Well, you got to be Dr. J." And from that moment on, it was Dr. J.
I think I messed up with the nickname thing. I'll confess this to everybody. Scott is actually, right, I've been telling everyone I'm Scott O, the editor. And Scott is actually not my first name. It's my middle name. My actual first name is Julius. Some of my staff right now is learning that for the first time and is going to make fun of me about it. But I think I might have really screwed up because if I stuck with Julius, I could be in that chair over there. And not
you could have it on the door.
You could have been the doctor.
Right? I could have been the doctor. So I think I messed up. But more seriously, how important is I think, when I think of Big Daddy, I think of this very powerful woman who is capable of accomplishing anything. How important was your name to you in establishing a personal brand?
I think the name, image, and likeness all work together. And since my endorsement career was born out of public service, charitable contributions, and public service announcements, that's when people recognized that I could sell, recognized that I could speak, and doing it for free and doing it as a service to the community with the March of Dimes and with the Salvation Army and entities like that, the Special Olympics. John Havlicek and I, we did public service stuff for the Special Olympics back in the 60s and 70s. And I think it opened the door for someone to say, well, he probably could be a good pitch man for Converse shoes or, you know, Spalding balls. And those are, you know, just two of the companies that I got involved with back in the 70s. And I'm still involved with Converse today. You know, of course, not with Spalding. They gave my deal to Scottie Pippen when he became a champion with the Bulls. And I'm still hot about that. But yeah, so it evolved over time, and you know, I've been involved with 40 or more corporate sponsorship deals
Because of that.
over the years since 1972. So 72 was kind of like the first year when it started to happen. And for whatever reason, people must still like me because the phone still rings. You know, and that's the key. You know, your phone continuing to ring, because I retired from the NBA in 1987. So there was 16 years of professional basketball, and it's been more than twice that long since the last game, the last dance, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think that phone ringing is, you know, that's part of the formula.
Absolutely.
Don't you think, Big Daddy?
Well,
So how does that, go ahead.
well, you know what? You talked yesterday. Well, we were together yesterday, and you shared a story yesterday about what you are doing differently than you did when you left the league. You talked about the brand from a perspective of you used to do more brand ambassador. You were a brand ambassador, but then you switched to the equity model because that's the model for more of the younger players that are coming out today.
Yeah.
They're not doing more of the brand ambassador deals anymore. It's more of an equity deal.
Well, absolutely. And the question yesterday was, what would you do differently? So if I was 21 again and I had an offer from Converse or Spalding or whatever, so I got cash in my pocket. I got enough for food, clothing, and shelter or whatever. And, you know, give me equity in the company. You know, let me have something that I could own and the next generation of Irvings could own and the next generation could own. So getting in on that level. So I've been able to do that with a few different situations. You know, everybody doesn't want you to own a piece of their company. But if they want you bad enough, and this is where the negotiation comes in.
And the value.
This is
Yeah.
where
So,
a point
Phyllis,
here
from
or
your
there.
perspective, why, I guess two questions. Why is developing a personal brand important for entrepreneurs today? And how did you sort of discover that for yourself?
Yeah, you know, so I spent 22 years in the military, and I worked for Colin Powell. And so one of the things that I learned a lot when working for him, he talked a lot about, you know, don't let your identity be tied to your position. Like, people should know who you are without the title, right? And so as I, you know, started the company, and, you know, the company starts to scale and it starts to grow, and if you're not careful, your identity will get tied to the brand. And then are you consistent with who you are as a person? So I will always tell you, this is why it's so important to never lead with what you do, but lead with who you are first. Because the connection of who you are, I'm gonna be more connected to you as a person. Every time somebody comes and they try to give me a pitch about their business, I stop them. I said, whoa, stop for a moment. Tell me who you are so I know who I'm talking to first. So let me give you an example. Let me tease you for the moment. So I would say, hi, I'm Phyllis Newhouse. I'm a mother. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm a collaborative. I'm a leader. I'm inspiring. I'm outrageous. And I just so happen to be the CEO of Extreme Solutions. I just so happen to be a veteran. Those are the things that I've done, but it doesn't tie to my identity. So I truly believe, know who you are as a brand, outrageous, and the things that you do, people will never have to guess what you do by virtue of who you are. You know, Dr. J said something yesterday when I asked this question about, you know, what's your value card? And the value card is a thing that everyone knows, no matter who you are, what that brand is, that's who you show up with, and people will never have to guess what his value card. He told me his value card was he's consistent. He's been pretty consistent with his brand over the years, right? And so that's why, for me, that's important. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You got a great memory too,
Yeah.
since yesterday. But just to chime in on that a little bit, it used to concern me a little bit that Dr. J was getting more well-known than Julius Irving. Mm-hmm. And I always introduced myself as Julius, sometimes Irving, sometimes Scott.
We're going to switch that today.
So, as an example, in the 70s, I used to listen to a lot of music, and there were musicians who would, put on these costumes when they're on the stage, Earth, Wind and Fire and others. Yeah. And if I walked out in the street and I saw Philip Bailey in his Earth, Wind and Fire costume or whatever, I would feel a little funny. I'd be like, that's for the stage.
Right.
This is not who you are. This is who you're portraying at that moment when you're hired to be out there and be on stage. Isaac Hayes, Black Moses, if he's in a movie theater, he ain't Black Moses. He's Isaac Hayes. Mm-hmm. And so I can't be Dr. J on the court and off the court. Well, now that I'm retired, I can be.
Now that you can.
But during that time, when I stepped off the court, I wanted to act, dress, speak, and be recognized as an individual citizen of the United States of America, Black American, Julius Irving.
That's really remarkable, and to me it's really interesting because it's such a separation from your court presence in a way, and it makes me wonder on your court presence, because I think this is part of who you are and why we still know who you are all of this time, right? Yeah. You had such a remarkable artistry on the court, right? I have to get, I couldn't remember it, so I had to write it down. The no way even for Dr. J flying reverse layup, right? That's something you were known for, behind the backboard with the opposite hand, coming from the free throw line to dunk. All of these remarkable things, were they part of creating a persona, or were they part of you just using the skills you had to play the game?
Yeah, it's how I played. I have teammates who today, while they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they call me or text me or something, they say, I was thinking about you the other day when we were playing like in the 70s or 80s, and I was like, what made you think of that? And he said, well, nobody played like you. He said, you opened the door for what we see today in terms of, being the first to win the slam dunk contest and, fast up-tempo style of basketball and contorting in the air and finishing with a punctuation that was a dunk, posterizing somebody, that stuff. I mean, the NBA could never compensate me for that. But the loving public can. Okay? Thank you.
That reminds me of the fact that you've had your number retired twice. Number 7, right? With the
32.
No. With the Sixers. With the
Number
Sixers.
6.
Number 6 with the Sixers.
Yeah.
And number 32 with the Nets. And what do we say about number 32?
With no 32, there'd be no 23.
No 23, right?
That's what they
Some
say.
of you guys don't get that. Phyllis,
That's what he said.
Phyllis, I want to ask you, with the proliferation of social media, and you have profound presence on social media, and I think a delightful one, and a positive one. How do you navigate this idea? Because I think there are a lot of people here who wrestle with how public they should be, how socially driven they should be. Where's the skills to back up what you're what you're talking about online? How do you make that calculation? Like, do I need to talk about this? Do I not talk about this? Am I an expert in this? Am I not an expert in this?
Yeah, so I think, Scott, it goes back to the identity. Like, who I am as Phyllis, the CEO, is still who I am as Phyllis as the person. I'll give you an example of how you back that up. People thought that during the George Floyd Black Lives Matter, that because you were a person of color who was leading an organization, that you were exempt from having those conversations in your organization. People don't check mores at the front door, FYI. So we were engaged in town hall discussions in my own company about what was going on in America at the time. And someone in my organization said, you know, and this was a non-person of color, said to me, hey, you haven't spoke out about this issue. You know, what are your views on this issue? And so it was a very personal issue for me, because I have a son who's 25 who had recently gone through being stopped for no reason, pulled out of the car, you know, with a gun, you know, and the police officer pulled a weapon out, the whole nine. So he could have easily have been the George Floyd. And so for me, it became very personal, and I felt like I did have the expertise to talk from a different position as a leader. And so I did voice good, bad, or indifferent to other people. This mattered to me that we pay attention. It's because I had personally experienced that with my own son. And so I think you have to, for me also to, you know, the women empowerment, you know, these are things that I'm super passionate about. And so if I'm speaking about them, it's because I'm living them and I believe in them and I have conviction about them. And so that's how I gauge that.
Dr. J, you talked about having a team around you. This is a question for both of you, really. How much a part of who you are as a celebrity and an entrepreneur yourself, same for you, Phyllis, just rests on your shoulders, and how much of it is the work of others?
I would like to believe that I'm making the final decision, since it's my life, my name, my image, my likeness. But the reality is, the majority of what gets brought to the table and gets processed by my nephew, who's my COO, or my non-blood sister, who's my personal assistant. So one is the bank keeper and the other is the gatekeeper. And if you can get by those two, as a lot of people try to do, you know, because lots of times, you know, when the initial contact is with me, because I'm out and I'm in the public, I'm on the golf courses, I'm at the basketball games, and I'm in public places. So I get approached by a lot of people, so I could be the first point of contact, but I need to be the third point of contact, you know, and have those two entrenched in places for their own employment and for my own protection. So you got to have some sort of team that you know, can defer the people who are ill-intended. You know, I mean, there's some people who just, you know, they just want to be around you,
or just the wrong deals,
you know,
right? So
to rape and pillage and all that kind of stuff, or whatever. There's some bad people on the planet.
Well, and I think you might have thought that was me, because as soon as I met him today, I said, you made me so happy as a kid and so miserable. And that was because I grew up an ABA Nets fan, and then Dr. J, and outside of New York, and then Dr. J went to Philadelphia, and if you're a New York sports fan, there's nothing worse than a Philadelphia sports team. So it was a very traumatic moment, but it turned out I wasn't that intense.
You know, Babe Ruth started in Boston, and then he went to New York.
Yeah, it's his fault.
He had to balance
it's
it out.
his
It's
fault.
Babe Ruth's fault.
His fault. What about you, Phyllis? Your presence is such that it's hard for me to believe that it's just you.
Oh, no, it's not. And they're probably watching now, every little thing that I say. But no, it took time to build a great team and people that I trust a great deal to be able to say, you should be doing a little more of this. And, I wasn't a person that really wanted to be on social media. I come out of a classified environment, coming from the military to cybersecurity, and so.
Can I just to interrupt, just to back when she says classified military, she actually founded the cybersecurity office of the Pentagon for Colin Powell.
Yeah.
So that's a significant thing. It also means she knows more about all of you than we will ever know about her.
Yeah, I just read all of Scott's text messages earlier. I'm joking, so for me, I truly believe it takes a great team of people when you're working towards being excellent. And even though there come mistakes, and I've fought against some things that I should have listened to the team. Or, and I'll bring something to the table, and they're like, oh my God, that is the most craziest thing, we can't do this. I was like, let's find a way. So I think having people that I can vet things out with, and that truly understands the brand and understands you, and when you get a great team like that, I think almost anything is possible.
Can we, are we allowed to mention the little team thing that we have going on?
Yes, absolutely. America's Next CEO. Yeah. So this is fantastic. So I was approached after I took the first public back in 2021 about doing a show. And the show, most of you've seen Shark Tank, American Idol, and the shows like that. And so we decided we wanted to do a show that was around women entrepreneurs. So women will pitch their business to 3 women judges, and at the end of the season, 1 woman will be named America's Next CEO. It will air on CBS in 2023, and Inc. is a partner of the show. So there's more to come on that.
All right.
And we're incredibly excited about that. And I just wanted to point out that sometimes teams actually can be in-house and they can extend outside of house.
Yes.
Dr. J, have you ever made a mistake with respect to your personal brand?
Yeah, some things don't win automatically. I've always, from my first business manager, was a guy named Erwin Weiner, who also managed Clyde Frazier, and was a part of what was it called? Frazier Weiner Sports Enterprises. So I was a client, and they would bring different things to me, and Erwin's philosophy was always, we got to go for the cream, cream of the crop. You don't never settle for less than the cream of the crop. And before my Converse shoe deal, there was a company in Queens, New York, and they were called Chemold, Chemold. And Erwin convinced me to try their shoes. And I did try their shoes. And it didn't work out. They were very heavy. They wore out very quickly, and that's why people don't know the name Chemold. So that deal didn't particularly work out. I loved golf, and I loved it so much I became a golf course owner.
In Atlanta.
That didn't work out. That didn't work out. We had that for a couple of years, and then we basically sold it back to the bank because we owed them so much money, we had to give them the golf course.
Because you were out there playing and not working?
I was I was playing, but I think I didn't make good hires.
Right.
So
during
team
that time.
again.
Yeah. My team, my A team was involved, but the team that ran the course, there was I guess, criminal element there and whatever. And you know, I bought the course in Atlanta, Georgia, but I actually lived in St. George, Utah. So I came back to try to save it. And after about a year and a half, we just gave it back to the bank. And it just, you know, shows that everything you go out there and try to do is not necessarily going to be a success or going to be a winner, but you got to try and, you know, have the resiliency to go ahead and take that hit and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Are you guys comfortable if we get some questions from the audience? Sure. Yeah? Sure. So I think we have a couple of microphones set up, and we'll, if anyone has a question, they can move to the mic and ask it. I'd ask that you not make it about the NBA or the ABA, just because I think we have two business minds here too, but you'll do as you wish, won't you, because you're entrepreneurs. While we wait for that, though, you know, I just think it's also important to acknowledge that there are, you know, personal brands that become questionable, right? I think in the entrepreneurial world, maybe that, well, in the sports world, maybe that's, you know, Bill Walton or Kurt Rambis, it doesn't have the endorsement contracts that someone who chose a different path or a different expression.
How about
of
Shaquille
themselves.
O'Neal?
Yeah, right. Or you know, Elon Musk in the entrepreneurial world is a little bit divisive for people.
For sure.
How do you know, the question then becomes like, how much of yourself is really on public display and how much is private? And when is it, you know, like how do you edit yourself? How do you censor yourself? Because clearly Phyllis, you're a complex human being, right? You have lots of different thoughts and they're not necessarily all on brand. How do you know when?
Yeah, so again, it goes back, for me, it goes back to the team. Most people have heard me talk about my mom, right? My mom is 91 and she's on social media. She's on, I mean, she knows like, oh, well, now that sweater you had on, and I saw that on Instagram, that didn't look nice on you, that's not your color. But anyway, but you know, so I think for me, it's, and I have a son too, my son's 25, and because, you know, he keeps me up to speed on a lot of things, and he'll say, you know, what's your opinion about this? Well, you probably should be careful not to be so opinionated about X. And so I think having a good team around you, because you are a human being, you do have feelings, and you do have your own life experiences on something that's happening in the world that's going to impact you, and how open and vocal do you want to be about that? And it goes back to me having the conviction and saying, you know what, this is something I'm going to talk about, and I don't really care if somebody is judgmental, because this is something that's personally affecting me or my family. So I'm going to have that discussion.
Yeah, my take on it is truth in advertising is critical. You know, don't say you eat Wheaties if you don't eat Wheaties, and you know so that's your personal integrity associated with that. But I do believe, as much as I believe in truth in advertising, and you know the image out there portrayed is, you know, nice guy and so on and so forth and approachable or whatever, it's not 24/7. You know, you have to have a life away from your endorsement life, your nil life, and there's some times in which popularity is generally great, but it's not great if they don't respect you. You know, so if I'm sitting having dinner with my family or grandchildren out in the park, like we always do, go out, fly kites, or whatever. That's our time. That's our space. You know, you shouldn't have to beg for that.
Right.
You know, people should understand. Look, the guy's with his grandson. or whatever. Let me leave him alone right now. It's not that important that I get a signature or I get acknowledged because I saw him 5 years ago walking out of a stadium and I said hi and he said hi back. And now we boys, you know. So the popularity piece, you know, gets a little tainted if they don't respect you. And I've tried to, you know, build an image and a brand based on respect. And so far, so good.
So it's worked, right? Because as you pointed out, that you've got twice the amount of time post-basketball.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's plenty of time. And, you know, a lot of people look at an opportunity. They say, well, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm going to see, you know, my hero or whatever. But, you know, just be respectful. And there's many people in my position who are not approachable. And you kind of know the person's not approachable. You better leave them alone because you're going to get the finger or you're going to get cussed at or whatever. And then it's going to create a bad scene for you and also make you feel differently about, you know, those who are the nice guys who are approachable, but approach them at the right time and place, you know, and it's not 24/7.
I appreciate you acknowledging that, and it makes me think about vulnerability. And we've had a whole bunch of discussions here in the last couple of days around that and acknowledging that we're not robots, we're not machines. You mentioned the difference between golf and basketball and how robotic golfers can be, but we're not that as people. Is it beneficial, Phyllis, for us to show those vulnerabilities or not on social media?
I think so. You know, and I will piggyback off of something. I tell you this, one generous guy. I've watched people, whether we were in the restaurant or wherever, and you know, even when you're having dinner and people come up and say, "Hey, can I get a picture?" I mean, I guess I've been on the other side of being out and seeing where people tend to not draw the line and be respectful. But although they expect for you to stay respectful during that process, they don't like. I don't care. I don't care if you're with your kids. I was with another basketball player at a NASCAR race, and he was with his children. And somebody said, "Oh, I want to take a picture," and he said, "I just want to. I'm with my little girls right now." I said, "No, I want to get a picture." And I mean, this person just kept going on and on. And eventually, someone says, "Come on, give him a break. He's just with his family." But to that point, it's like, where do you draw the line to say, you know what, this is family time right now?
And I think it boils down to the individual, because if you run into an individual who's on a mission and who wants to get a picture or an autograph and sell it, he don't care. He don't care. He's not going to be respectful of your family or yourself, and so you got to put him in his place. And you know, and I've had to do that a few times, because I know when I get off a plane and somebody's at the airport with a basketball, that's like an odd look.
Pretty odd.
So I guess I shouldn't take this out right now.
It's like
this ball we had in the back.
He's at the airport. He's at the guy behind him has a basketball. They got some inside information, right?
Because Phyllis gave them the inside information.
Phyllis gave him the inside.
I think Scott gave it to him.
Phyllis, do you think, how hard do you have to work on the idea of having a personal brand? How much does it come naturally? And how much better do you think younger people who've grown up with social media are at it? Yeah,
I think for me, again, going back to coming from my background to cyber, to this, and again, everything that, if I had to give any advice, let me just say this. If I were giving any entrepreneur advice right now, don't hide behind the brand. Come out from behind the brand. Typically, women hide behind the brand. If I were to give you 4 brands right now and said, who's in front of that brand, you would know them. But if I gave you brands that typically are women-owned brands, we don't know who they are because women tend to like to, in my opinion, I think we stay under the radar too long. And then when it's time to come out from behind, we said, oh, you know, I got to start working on a personal brand. If I were to name 3 women right now, they all have billion-dollar brands, you'd have to Google them because they're not typically, you don't see them on social media, you don't see them, they don't have a presence on social media, but they're running very large-scale size companies. But what happens the day you leave that company? Can the personal brand still live after the business brand? And how do you tie the two? So that's what I had to get good at. One day I'm gonna no longer be the CEO of Extreme Solutions. So will my identity be fully tied to that? Or is there a personal brand that can be even more meaningful for me and that can live a lot longer than just the company?
How much of that is ego or lack of ego, and how much of that is
You mean my
for
ego?
No.
Because
No, not
I
you.
have a really big one. No, I'm just joking.
That's why they call you Big Daddy. But yeah,
Daddy.
you know, their ego is preventing them from, you know, being out in front of the brand and their name, having their name out there, or even security reasons, being protective of family and whatever. They said brands out there, you know, hosiery is out of there, but it's not mine.
I think there's a lot of it. I think for me, in the beginning, I was so focused on building and scaling the business that even when my team was telling me, we need to get you out front, you need to be speaking about cyber. My male counterparts was out there speaking about cyber, CrowdStrike. They were out there speaking about the cyber events. They were industry experts in this area. And all I focused on was, we're going to build a great brand, we're going to grow the company. But I think you can still build that great brand, but you still need to be out in front of the brand talking about that really gives you the credibility. So a lot of times it really gives you the credibility and also sustainability for the business as you're building that personal brand together. But I do think they work hand in hand.
That's great advice for the audience right there.
Yeah.
Looks like we have someone at the microphone ready to ask a question.
Hi, I'm Lauren Aquino. I'm a owner of a cybersecurity company in Honolulu, Hawaii. My question is actually for Phyllis. Well, it could be for both. Because I'm a cybersecurity owner, I always cringe when I see my name and face on their website, and I know we need it as part of being an owner. I just want to kind of get from Phyllis, where do you kind of draw the line? Because hackers, they go to websites and they go on social media. As an owner, you need to present yourself. You have to have your personal identity. But where do you kind of draw the line as far as if you have that security concern?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, when I was in the military, that was one of the things. Every senior official in the military becomes a target. For espionage reasons, for a lot of things, right? And so the same safeguards that I had then are the same safeguards that I have today. So evolving to more of the social media and all those outlets that I do use, there are still those safeguards in place. Anybody that tells you, and I'm sure you would attest to this, anybody that tells you, oh, I'm 100%, hackable. No one can get into, my space or any of that. So I think as long as you keep safeguards, you have people that are also, managing the risk that you have and the exposure that you have, I think you can gauge that. But I do think it's important, especially if you're a cyber owner. Most people think that if you're own a cyber company, all the hackers are going to come. They're going to come for you, right? But I think this is an opportunity that you have as an industry expert to be out there talking about all of these vulnerabilities and the risks that are out there that we face today.
It's a great question. Thank you. There's one over here. I think this is probably only time for one more.
Hi, my name is Jabari Allen. I am the sales director for a minority woman-owned business. We are 196 on the Inc. 5000.
Congratulations.
elite business strategies. And our CEO, who is here, she is extremely humble. She has built an amazing business, and it's such an honor to work for her. She puts a lot into the business. And so what you said, speaking to building a personal brand that's outside of the business, I think that if you could give us her or us some tips on what it took for you to start off with building your personal brand, so that if one day she does decide to leave, which I don't think will happen, but it could, what is advice that you could give us to, help her with establishing her personal brand?
Yeah, so it started for me getting out, speaking on platforms about the business. In my industry, you see very little women in cybersecurity, and certainly women of color. And so for me, this was an opportunity to have a voice for women in this space, in the industry, but also to really show the expertise that I had in this space. And so it started from that, but then it evolved into many other things. As Scott talked about, one of my passions is empowerment for women, and also a younger generation, kids with STEM programs for young girls. So it started from really about being business focused as an expert in this industry, but more importantly on the things that are legacy building things for me. So
Okay.
Eventually you leave this, everybody wants a great legacy. So are you working on that now? Because I think that part of it begins as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I said no more basketball, and then I had this realization that we just talked about a television show that you're going to be on, and that everyone is going to watch in April. CBS in April, that I hope all of us are going to watch. So we're all going to see Phyllis on screen
And
before
I'm not
too
going to
long.
be Mr. Wonderful. I'm going to be Mrs. Wonderful, but nice. I'm going to be the nice one. I'm not going to be mean.
Big Daddy Wonderful. She's got to get the branding right. But so we'll see Phyllis on screen, and just the realization suddenly that I can tell there are a lot of people in the room who may not been alive when Dr. J played. I thought it would be special just for a moment to actually see why he's still relevant today, why there would be no 23 without a 32. And separately, there would be no 23 with a haircut if he didn't copy mine. I'm just saying I had it first. But we've got queued up a video that's short, just a couple of minutes, that I thought was worth seeing. So Jay Thor, if we could play that, I would love to see that right now.
This is awesome.
Julius Irving is and that's been for everyone. What a move by the doctor. He can do it all. Way back to making his sleep and slam dunk.
When we cut him off baseline, he started walking in air. Got the ball in one hand. And we said, wait a minute, he's got to come down. There's no way he can stay in the air that long.
And now the doctor goes to work.
With each dunk that night, the show got better and better. And the greatest of them all will become a piece of basketball lore.
When greatness meets class, that's what God created in Dr. J.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing, right?
Thank you, Scott.
And with that, I'd just like to thank Phyllis and my buddy Julius, Dr. J, for being with us here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.